When talking about denominations, people always ask why there have been so many, but that is easy to answer. Poor communication, usually the result of language or distance barriers that result in important questions of faith being answered by smaller pockets instead of the whole group. And over time, decisions will be reached separately that the different groups cannot agree to, and a split will happen. I've talked about that in the previous videos on this series. But if it is that easy to split, then perhaps a more helpful question is what prevents church splits from happening? Well, communication of issues across the denomination before decisions are made, and a vibrant and public example of what being Christ-like looks like. And while there are many examples of this at work, let's take a look at just one example, the Middle Ages. From the turn of the millennia to the early 1500s, there were no major splits in the Roman Catholic Church. 500 years, and they stayed together, despite covering all of Western Europe and a multitude of languages. So how did they do it? A number of things helped. First, the church itself was unified by using Latin as the official language of the church, allowing people to communicate across national lines. And the slow speed of communication also strangely helped. A conversation between two people might take several years, so a conversation about theology could take decades to reason through. This made sure that almost everyone who wanted to take part in it heard about the situation and got a chance to think about it before any decisions were made. One of the reasons for the multiplication of denominations in the 1500s and the explosion of them today is the speed with which we communicate and decide matters. With the printing press, an entire nation could read a book before a courier carrying it could have reached the other side of Europe, creating situations where one group was neck deep in resolving discussions that another group hadn't heard of yet. And with the internet, that time is now measured not in days or weeks, but in seconds. Everyone subscribed to a particular Twitter account can hear news, see reactions to that news, and be expected to form their own opinion on it within minutes, while the rest of the world is unaware anything is even happening yet. Part of the challenge today is to slow down conversations enough that they can be held among many people. Not debates of already held opinions, but discussions of what is to come. For instance, talking about the role of women in ministry today isn't an open discussion. It's a debate between already held opinions. Because we've already talked about that and thought about that. That's been in this air for a long time. Talking about whether AI can have a soul or be saved and whether artificial intelligence might be able to sin in the first place is a discussion because very few people have ever thought about it, much less arrived at an answer. The 1200s in medieval Europe were going poorly for the church. The average people were burned out on religion after the Crusades, and the church was becoming richer and richer, with bishops and lords being almost indistinguishable in their wealth. Latin was dead among the laity, and education was down. Seems like a perfect time for a church split, right? And it would have been if not for the rise of several similar groups all about the same time, who are now known as the Mendicant monastic orders. Monks, basically. So, centuries earlier, the creation of monasteries had been salvation to the church before, but since then, they had grown just as wealthy, or sometimes even more wealthy, than the most decadent churches, having lavish manor houses out in the countryside surrounded by thousands of acres that they owned. And on top of that, monasteries had become dumping grounds for troublesome children of minor nobles, or for first wives from wealthy leaders who wanted a new one. Good spiritual examples were at an all-time low because the monks, the people that you look up to for spiritual examples, didn't actually want to be there and sometimes didn't even believe. Enter a new breed of monastics outside the normal church structure and infighting. These people didn't live in posh rural monasteries. They traveled from place to place, preaching, teaching, and looking after the poor and sick. They took vows of poverty, and as they traveled, they took ideas with them. Soon these ideas took root in schools, universities, and these new monastics began sharing their ideas with everyone. You might have heard of the Franciscans, Carmelites, Dominicans, and Augustinians. That's them. That's the Mendicants. They became living examples of what a Christian should be, living simply among the people, serving as Jesus' hands and feet, while not abandoning education and learning for everyone. Indeed, they brought conversation back to the people, and by moving about, they ensured that that conversation wasn't rooted in only one place, but was one that everyone could participate in. And together, they encouraged reform in the church, revitalized the people, and kept the church in the West united for another 250 years. That's pretty impressive. That's a good conversation. And a good conversation is what I've been trying to do with this channel, to look carefully and seriously at topics that perhaps we have glossed over in our debates. Because I think more than anything else, we need two things in the American church today. We need honest conversation and vibrant examples of Christ-likeness. It's hard to live like Christ online. I certainly try, and I try offline. But I thought at least maybe I could get some good discussion going. But successful or not, this will be my last weekly video. I intended to do more videos on denominations, but they would all basically be the same. It's either ego run amok, or more usually, poor communication resulting in locked-in ideas before either confrontation or distance separated people. And what can you say to that other than stay away from both? For those of you who have stuck with me, who have found my channel and liked, shared, commented, and encouraged me these past 3 years, thank you. I will still be checking the channel, and I might post every now and then, but probably not for quite a while if I do. I've enjoyed the last 3 years and talking about history and scripture, inspiration, translation, genocide, and everything in between. It has been helpful for me to make the videos, and hopefully it has been helpful for you as well. But it is time for me to sign off. To all of you, thank you for watching all these times. Have a great week. God bless.